In this video, we're going to talk about Google Analytics. I think it's safe to say that Google Analytics is one of the most important web analytics tools on the market today. Now, as we go through this presentation, we've got screenshots of the various reports that you're going to want to look at. If you already have Google Analytics installed on your site, what we'd suggest is that you open up your Google Analytics account and follow along. I'll give you a minute here to get that set up, and while you're pulling it up, let's start with some background information on what Google Analytics is. Google Analytics is a web analytics tool that looks at how people are interacting with your website. It's a free tool, and it's pretty good at giving a lot of depth in a variety of areas about how people are using your website. And for pure traffic data, it works really well until you get into a more enterprise level situation. The big thing to note is that you cannot get everything you need from Google Analytics. So at Elementive, what we suggest is that Google Analytics be your primary tool, but not your only tool to understand your website. It gets back to that idea of web analytics and marketing analytics. To really get a clear picture of your marketing performance, you need a broader set of data than what Google Analytics can offer. The biggest problem people have with Google Analytics, and what our mission is to get rid of today, is the analysis paralysis that can happen when you log in. There's a lot of data in Google Analytics, and we're not going to go through all of that data today. To be honest, you don't need to look at all of that data all the time. Instead, what we're going to look at are the specific things you need to check out every day, every week, and every month in Google Analytics. The objective is to give you a clear idea of what stats will be the most useful to help you make adjustments to your website. So let's start by getting into Google Analytics and talk about what you need to do every month. Every month, what you want to do is get a high-level sense of your website's performance. I suggest penciling this in for the first 30 minutes on the first business day of the month to look back on the previous month's numbers. We do this ourselves at Elementive, and we also do this for our clients who we work with on an ongoing basis. When you first log in to Google Analytics for your domain, you'll arrive on the Audience Overview report. The first step is to change your date range. For your monthly check, if you're doing it on the first business day of the month, you'll want to change the date range to the prior month. For all of you watching, we're providing an Excel spreadsheet that you can download and fill out at the start of every month. This will help you keep track of your numbers. Now, our actual sheet for clients covers a lot more area. It goes into a lot more detail, but this sheet should give you a good starting point to build on for your websites. Now that you've changed your date range and you have your Excel spreadsheet open, let's take a look at that Audience Overview report. Every month, we want to take a look at total sessions, users, page views, pages per session, bounce rate, and session duration. What we're really looking for here are trends over time. By themselves, these numbers don't mean much, but comparing year over year or month over month, you can have an easy way to spot some trends. This is why we make it a point to log these numbers into that Excel sheet. That way you can easily reference past numbers and really start to understand how your numbers trend over time. Let's define each of these terms a little bit more clearly. Starting with users. Users is roughly speaking the number of unique people who saw your website during a given time frame. Sessions is the number of times those users interacted with your website. Page views is the number of pages viewed during this time range. Pages per session is the average number of pages people looked at during their session. This is a high-level site-wide number, so it's not as meaningful. We're going to talk about other ways you can get at this pages per session number that are more meaningful later on in this presentation. But knowing the pages per session people look at, on average, across your entire site, is still really helpful to look at every month. Bounce rate is a measurement of how many people looked at one page, then left your site. Like pages per session, there are more meaningful ways to look at this number, and we'll talk about those in a few minutes. Session duration seems pretty straightforward. It's the amount of time people spend on your site. Keep in mind, though, that Google Analytics has issues tracking this number, especially for the time people spent on just one page of your site. Treat this number as a rough guide, but you want to rely on other tools to get a clear sense of how long people take to interact with your website. For monthly checks, though, this number will give you a rough indicator if people are spending more or less time on a page. Once we've pulled those numbers, the next thing to look at is where your traffic is coming from. That's in the left sidebar. You want to click on Acquisition, All Traffic, then Channels. Once there, you'll see a table listing the big channel groupings for your site and the total sessions for each channel. You can add those numbers into the Excel file each month so that you can watch for trends easily over time. Since we're looking at this monthly, the first question to ask is if this tracks with the marketing and promotion work you've done in the previous month. Did you invest heavily in sending out emails or maybe in offline marketing? If so, then your direct traffic might be higher. If you blogged more frequently or worked on getting more sites linking to you, then maybe organic or social traffic should be higher. You also want to look at these numbers to see if there were any big decreases. Did your direct traffic plummet? Did your organic traffic plummet? If so, go back to that Excel file and take a look to see if you saw the same decrease in previous years. Did you stop spending money on an ad, or did you make other changes to your website? If this isn't a seasonal trend, or it's not a change that you can be explained by some other kind of marketing activity, you may have a problem and you need to dive in to really figure out what's going on. Along with reviewing total sessions for each channel, you also want to look at bounce rate, session duration, and pages per session specific to each channel. This starts to give you more meaningful numbers around the quality of traffic visiting your site. For instance, this site has a much higher bounce rate and lower session duration for direct traffic. That probably means this company needs to look more deeply into direct traffic to see what's causing that, as compared to the longer time spent and lower bounce rate that we see from referred traffic. Now let's shift gears and talk about what you need to look at every week. I'd suggest taking 15 minutes every Monday to look at last week's web traffic numbers. The big thing to look at every week on your site is what's trending right now. You're working hard promoting stuff on social media, sending out your newsletter, posting blogs, etc. And you need to know if all of those marketing activities are working. You'll want to start by changing your date range in Google Analytics to the last 7 days. After you've changed the date range, go to the left sidebar. You'll want to click on Behavior, Site Content, Landing Pages. What you're looking at here are the pages people arrived on during the last 7 days. These pages were the entry point to your website. As you look at this every week, you'll start to get a read on what content is responding with people and what's capturing their interest to really draw them into your website. I personally like to look at this every Monday morning to see what content worked best over the last 7 days. It really gives me a good idea for what blog posts I need to write this week. Now, we don't want to just look at what brought people into our site. We also want to look at where people went once they got to our site. So for that, we want to go to Behavior, Site Content, All Pages. This shows us a table of all the pages people looked at on our website over the last week. This is helpful to get a sense of what people are interested in when actually viewing your website. Where the landing pages should give you ideas of what new content you might want to create to bring people into your site this week. This report of all the pages people visited should give you an idea of what content to link to in those new blog posts or email newsletters you may be writing during the course of this week. The final thing to look at each week is the top channels report. We're checking this monthly too, but each week we want to keep an eye on it to see if anything's fluctuating. That's located under Acquisition, All Traffic, Channels. You know what the numbers are monthly, and this way you'll know what the numbers are week to week, and the numbers should be steady. If they aren't steady, if you see big decreases or big increases, you want to figure out why. Did you drop an ad? Did something get a link from somewhere? Is something else going on that could explain the shift? If you can't explain the shift, you may have a problem that you need to dig into a little bit more. And this is where you can get that early warning that something might be off. And trust me, it's way better to catch problems every week versus catching a problem every month. Now finally, I want to talk about what you need to check out daily in Google Analytics. Yes, that's right, I said daily. Every day, what we recommend at Elementive is that you check in on one page of your website, where monthly is about getting a sense of broad trends. Weekly is about getting a pulse on your traffic and what pages are of interest. A daily check is your chance to go really deep on one page or maybe one section of your website. So we suggest taking 5 or so minutes every morning to just check in on a page of your website. So for this, let's change your date range to the last month. Then go to All Pages report, which is under Behavior, Site Content, All Pages. From here, click on one of the URLs listed in the table. This will take you to a detailed report about this one page. The first question we want to ask is if the average time people spend on this one page is good. In this case, it's 1 minute 28 seconds. Now, is that good or is that bad? Well, in the case of this page referenced in this screenshot, it's a slightly longer text-heavy page, so the fact that people need about 90 seconds to look at this page actually makes some sense. In fact, the time people spend on this page could even be longer. So if I was reviewing this page on my daily check, I'd make a note on my to-do list that I want to see how I might go about increasing the time people spend on the page and really increase the amount of engagement people have with this page's content. The next question to ask is to look at the exit rate for this page. In this case, we've got an 82% exit rate. That's a lot of people leaving the site after looking at this page. That's another item that should probably be added to my to-do list. I want to know how I can adjust this page to reduce my exit rate. For example, you might want to look at changing your calls to action or adding more links to the content to give people other things to do besides exiting the site. Now, how do you do that? How do you know what your call to action is? How do you know what links you might want to add? Well, to get a sense of that, you want to know what people are thinking as they reach this page. You want to know where they're at and what they're interested in. You want to know what their intentions are. To get that data, you want to click on the Navigation Summary tab. This report tells you where people were on your site before coming to this page, and of the people who did not exit from this page, where they went on your website after seeing this page. This really starts to put this page in more context, and it gives me a sense of what people are interested in. So if people are interested in a certain theme or a certain type of page, I might try adding links to those pages or similar pages to the content on this page. I might also rewrite parts of this page to speak more to that theme or to build on the pages people had previously seen. I'll give you an example. If the general theme is that people are browsing for basic information, stuff that they would be interested early on in the buying cycle, then my call to action and links on this page shouldn't be about pushing a sale, but probably should be links and calls to action to more basic information to help lead up to that sale. So as I go through these reports about each page, the things I want to change about this page to influence the numbers gets put on my to-do list. That way I can update the page and try to correct any issues or take advantage of any opportunities I might be seeing. Along with Google Analytics to understand how that one page is performing, you also want to rely on other tools that will give you a deeper sense of how people are interacting with this page and other pages on your website. Continue watching the rest of our video series to learn about other tools you can use to monitor and analyze your website. In the next video, we're going to talk about a tool called Crazy Egg.